Now, government forces in the Democratic Republic of the Congo are losing an ally in their fight against M23 rebels. The Southern African regional group, the SADC, says it's pulling its troops out of the DRC in what it calls a phased withdrawal. The 16-member SADC deployed its mission in Congo in December 2023 to help the government fight rebel groups. Now, that's as the M23 advance is having a devastating effect on the DRC's neighbours. In recent months, the rebels have seized territory in Congo, including the main cities of Goma and Bukavu. The conflict has forced more than 65,000 people to flee across the border to Burundi. But conditions there are dire. That's according to the UN's Refugee Agency, and its workers are struggling to cope.
A stadium in Burundi turned into a makeshift refugee camp. Around 45,000 people are sheltering here after fleeing the fighting in neighbouring Democratic Republic of the Congo. Many of them unaccompanied children. Among those seeking refuge here is Sikajua Bisimura. This is the second time in her life that she's been forced to flee her homeland for Burundi because of violent conflict.
Life here is difficult. We're not used to living like this. We had homes before, but here we sleep in tents. We used to work in farms, but here there's nothing to do. That's why, if the war ends, we'll go back home.
Displaced Congolese have been arriving in Burundi by any means possible and setting up camp wherever they can.
We fled the fighting. There was gunfire and some people were killed, but some of us managed to escape. We fled and came here.
The UN Refugee Agency is in the process of trying to move some of these displaced people to an official refugee site in the south of Burundi. But resources are limited.
This country, despite its best efforts, was not prepared for this emergency. Humanitarian agencies are working round the clock. My colleagues are working Monday to Saturday, 6 days out of 7, at Rugombo, making sure that people are registered, trying to fasten the process so that they're moved to the refugee sites. But without enough or without more and sustained donor funding, the aid response is literally buckling.
But that won't stop displaced Congolese from seeking shelter here as they wait for peace.
And for more, we can speak to Faith Kasina from the UNHCR. She joins us from Nairobi. Faith, welcome to DW. Thank you for your time. We just heard you there in that report saying the aid response is literally buckling in Burundi. Can you tell us what is needed most?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I think from what you can see in your report in the Rugombo Stadium, it's a very dire humanitarian situation. You're talking about thousands of people crammed up in a local stadium generously given by the government of Burundi because that was the only available space for people to shelter before they're moved on to the designated refugee sites away from the border. But this is a very small space compared to the number of people who've already arrived and those who continue coming. I was just in Rugombo a few days ago, and on that particular day when we were in the stadium, we got word that about 300 people actually had crossed into Burundi through another border crossing point, heading towards the stadium to seek shelter. So again, it's a very dire humanitarian situation. Lots of people sheltering in a very confined space. The main needs are, as you have seen, shelter. There's not enough space to put additional shelter. People now are forced to look for alternative space outside the stadium. So open fields in neighboring communities, the neighboring community where they can put up the tents and they can shelter until they're able to move to the refugee sites. Water is a problem, not enough for everyone. There's a local food kitchen within the stadium that's, making porridge for young children twice a day. There is food that's being cooked. Again, these are resources that are being constantly constantly stretched because of the dire situation, the sheer number of arrivals, who are people who are already there, and more that are expected to come.
So very, very limited resources. Tell us more about the actual situation on the ground, the everyday reality that refugees are facing, you know, what they encounter when they reach Burundi.
So upon Burundi, you know, after making their way to the stadium, you know, they literally have to sort of share the resources that are available. When I was in Rugombo last week, I met this family of a mother who had just given birth 3 days before she had to flee her home in Congo. That was 3 weeks ago, from when she actually arrived. And, she has a newborn baby. She has 4 others by her side. By the time she was getting to the stadium, there's no place where she can shelter, and she was being hosted by host communities. So we are seeing also just local people, Burundians themselves, opening their homes, taking in people, sharing the little resources that they have, shelter and food and water, just because of the situation that, they see their fellow brothers and sisters caught up in. As you can see from the report, there's very little space, again, in the stadium, and the focus right now is on the stadium because that's where the bulk of the arrivals are. 45,000 people, as per the figures that we have. This is just, this is like 80% of the people who've arrived. We're looking at, in total, 64,000 people who have arrived in Burundi in different areas of the country, still seeking the same assistance, still, battling with the same challenges in resources and available assistance. So essentially a very dire situation.
Faith, if I can ask you, we're hearing that the Southern African Regional Bloc SADC has decided to end its military deployment to Congo. Tell us what that withdrawal would mean for UNHCR's work in the region.
I mean, I'm not the best person to comment on that. I think as UNHCR, our mandate is essentially ensuring that anyone who crosses a border in search of safety, in search of assistance, is able to access it. So any assistance that we can get in terms of, at the regional level with SADC, at the country level in Burundi, in the DRC, any support we can get that will help us reach people safely and in a timely way with the assistance that they need is definitely welcome.
Faith Casina from the UNHCR, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.